This video is going to cover creating a value scale with ebony pencil. So I have my value scales here. The ebony pencil will be our first value scale for this unit. We can see that I have a few examples on our Unit 2 project page. So if you're following the directions in BB9 for this step, I first ask that you view our project page to look at a few examples. Some examples show a value scale going from light to dark or dark to light, and some are a little bit more advanced. So I'm going to have videos that show you how to do both. It's nice to see different examples because it shows us that value scales can look different and still be successful. So after you've viewed that information on our project page, we're going to get started with your value scale. This video is going to cover our regular value scale, and we know from our packet that our value scale is something that goes from dark to light or light to dark. So when we create our regular value scale, we're going to be working on our worksheet here, and our goal is going to be to go from dark to light or light to dark. In my other video, I will create a value scale that's a little bit more advanced for those of you that want to try that technique. So what I want to do first is make sure I get my name and hour up here. So I want you to go ahead and make sure that's filled in on your worksheet. And we're working on our formative number 2 value scales with mixed media worksheet. I have a few things out that are going to help me today, so I want to explain that first. So I have my supplies here. I have my ebony pencil, my blending stump, my sharpener, and then I have a few things of my own. So I have an eraser here, and I like to use a larger eraser for value scales and blending and really creating in general, because when I need to erase a larger area, I can do that and not create like harsh eraser marks because I can use like the bigger space on the eraser. If I'm using the eraser on the end of a pencil, I'm going to get some streaks through my erasing, or the same thing with this type of an eraser. So I'll show you how to try and use these things successfully, but I'd strongly encourage you to get a larger eraser if you're able to. Other things that I have out next to me would be my extra value scales. So if I mess up really bad the first time I try this, I can always jump over here. Or if you follow along and you do the regular value scale with me and then you'd like to try the advanced, this is an area where you can work. I also have a blank piece of paper. If you don't want to use up your plain sketch paper, you could use anything for this, like loose leaf paper or any scrap paper you have at home. This is going to be something that I use to test my pencil on and to clean my blending stump off on as I go. So I'm going to have that sitting next to me as I work so I can do that. All right, so we're ready to get started with our regular value scale. And I know that my goal is to show this ebony pencil scale from dark to light or light to dark. It doesn't matter to me which direction you go. So I want to make sure in the end I show how dark this ebony pencil can get and how light it can get. So the lightest value is going to be the white of my paper. If I were working on a color piece of paper, the lightest value would be whatever the color of the paper is. So that's my goal. I need to get as dark as this tool can get and as light as it can get. I want you to make sure that as you sharpen your pencil today, if it's new or any of the supplies are new that you get, that we get into the routine of sharpening on the right side. So I sharpen on the side of the pencil where there's no information. So I'm still going to be able to sharpen this pencil all the way down and still be able to see what kind of pencil it is. All right, so I want you to sharpen the pencil on the opposite side of that. Same thing with any of the other tools you get from me for our art class. It's just a good routine to get used to as an artist so that you can see what material you're working with. So my direction for my ebony pencil, the first one says blend the ebony pencil with the blending stump, dark to light or light to dark. The next one says create a smooth transition from the darkest value to the white of the paper. That's not the only way to create a value scale. A value scale does not have to be smooth from one side to the next, but for this project we want to make sure that we can do this skill, and then later you might choose to show other techniques, for example hatching or cross hatching, going from dark to light, because that's all right too when we think about techniques with art. The next one says the advanced option is to go dark to light to dark again. So I do have a student example of that, and I'll show that in my next video. So when I work on a value scale, I get to choose which end is going to be dark and which end is going to be light. I'm going to start with my dark value on this side and get lighter towards this side. So to do that, I'm going to rotate my paper to help me with that as I draw. Now, as I start to fill this in, I want to point out a few things. If I know I'm starting on my darkest edge, I'm going to press harder with my pencil. I'm going to try and stay in the lines as much as possible, but I know that this is practice, so if I go outside the edge, that's fine. I also know this is a pencil, so if I go outside the lines, I'm going to be able to erase that, at least most of it. So I'm pressing pretty hard at first, and then I'm going to gradually get lighter. So I'm not pressing as hard with my pencil right now. As I draw, I hope that you start to notice how I'm holding my pencil. I'm holding my pencil so that I'm using this side of my pencil. It's really important so that I can try and get that smooth transition that we're going for. So I'm going to start to get lighter and lighter on the page. I'm trying not to get like scribble marks in some spots. It's going to be a little bit harder. For example, like here. But this is looking pretty good so far. So the reason why I'm holding my pencil on its side instead of the top of it is so that I don't get those scribble marks as I go dark to light. If I say, oh, I'll just use my blending stump and I'll fix that later, we're gonna see what happens to that later. So I wanna try and use the side of my pencil. That's why you have that pencil sharpener, because you always want to keep sharpening when you need to. Now I'm going over this edge that I first started on. Right, and I'm starting to build up my value in layers. So I know that I need to get this pencil as dark as I can on the darkest edge, and I want my values to transition smoothly. So if this dark value right here ends right there, if I can see that, that's not a smooth transition. So what I'm trying to do is take my pencil over that space and keep adding some value back and forth. Now I'm pressing lighter, back and forth, and now I'm pressing even lighter, back and forth, so that it slowly transitions from one gray value to the next gray value. And this takes some practice to learn how that's going to look. So be patient with yourself. The more you practice, the better you get, just like with anything. Okay, I'm gonna leave this area the white of the paper. So I have a pretty good transition here. It looks grainy and it looks like there's those scribbled edges because I haven't blended it yet. So I'm not worried about that right now. What I am worried about is that it's going dark to light. So now if I'm wondering, okay, is this good enough yet? I'm going to blend this with my blending stump, and then I'll be able to see if I need to add any more with my pencil. So just like with my pencil, with my blending stump, I'm gonna use it on its side. And I'm going to practice, since this is my ebony pencil for this, or my blending stump for this unit, I'm going to have one end be for dark values and one end be for lighter values. So I'd really suggest getting that routine down right away. So this is just rolled up paper, right? That's what our blending stump is made out of, just thin paper rolled up very tightly and glued together. So I want to use the side of my blending stump. Since this is just paper, if I use the point of it and I press really hard down onto the paper, it's going to smush and the paper is going to push back towards the other edge. And that doesn't give you a smooth edge to work with and blend with. So you want to use the side of this and use it carefully so that you have it to use throughout this project. So I'm going to start with my dark value and I'm trying to fill in those corners that didn't get filled in yet. I'm going outside the lines a little bit. I'll erase that later. And then I'm going to work my way towards that lighter edge. I'm starting to press lighter with my blending stump as well. I'm pressing hard on this edge, lighter this way, and I can see how much pencil my blending stump is picking up. That's normal. This is paper, it's going to pick up the pencil. So what I want to do is rotate to a cleaner edge when I'm able to, if I'm working on like a lighter area. And I'm going to save the other side of my blending stump for when I'm really, really light. And I'm going in different directions with my blending stump to help remove any of the pencil lines. Okay, and then I'm going to move to my other side here. That's going to be used for lighter values, and I'm going to work on this edge. So I'm kind of pulling what's here over to this side so that I can get a super light gray. And my goal is to keep the white of the paper. So if things are getting too dark over here, that's where your eraser is going to come in. Now I want to talk about how do we handle all of this pencil on our blending stump, since this is normal. For our class, what we're going to do is we're going to use our paper to just wipe our blending stump back and forth, and it starts to remove what's here. It's never going to fully remove it, but even if I work to remove most of it or as much as I can, then I could use this and still create a super light gray, even though it looks pretty dark on my blending stump. So that's how we're going to clean our blending stumps. Now, if you were working with your own blending stump, what you could do is you could take an X-Acto knife to carve away your edges. However, it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that and keep it smooth. So for our class, we're going to do it this way so that you can turn this back into me at the end of our unit, and other students would still be able to use it as well. All right, so this value scale is blended, but now what I need to do is look at, is this a smooth enough transition? Does it show this range? This right here is a really large area of this same gray. So I want this to really show a lot of range with my value. I think I could get this edge a little darker. So I'm gonna press harder here, still using the side of my pencil, and I'm gonna blend it a little lighter. I'm gonna add a little bit more gray here, and then a little bit more here. It's looking a little spotted. All right, now I can take my blending stump, and I'm gonna start on the lighter edge with my lighter values. I've practiced this a lot, so my value scales tend to go pretty quick. If you haven't done this before, you might be running into a few issues that I'll talk about next. Okay, and then the darker edge. And then I want to reevaluate, right? Is this looking as smooth as it could? If I have a lot of ebony pencil built up on my blending stump, I can actually use this, apply it to the paper, and it will come off onto the paper, so I can use this instead of my pencil. The pencil's not the only way to add more ebony pencil. I can actually use what's on here and start to add it to spaces. So I'm trying to practice that smooth value scale. Right? Then I could take my eraser and erase along the edges. Now, one thing you might be running into is, what if your value scale starts to get too dark down here? So I'm going to add to my value scale here, make it too dark, to show you what you could do. If it's too dark or it's too splotchy in some areas, what I want you to try and do with a larger eraser is use the bigger edge of it and go over the top. So by doing this, I'm not just trying to erase everything that's there, but I'm trying to lighten up some of the gray here and then erase it completely towards the edge. So I'm really just trying to lighten it instead of erasing it all the way. All right, and then I can take my lighter edge here of my blending stump and kind of fill in any of those areas that are looking a little splotchy. So by doing that, I'm still continuing that idea of a smooth value scale instead of erasing an area and getting this harsh eraser mark. Now I'm going to have to work harder with my blending stump to try and smooth that eraser mark away and then blend it back in. So that can just be a little bit more challenging if you're working with, I can still see that line there, if you're working with those eraser lines. So I'm just trying to make that look even again. I'm pressing really light with my blending stump. I'm using what's on here to kind of add a little bit more to the paper. So this is where it becomes challenging if you're working with a really small eraser. You're gonna have to lightly erase and you'll probably get eraser marks, and then you'll just have to work through that with your blending stump. Now if I think, okay, I'll just use my blending stump to smooth out my pencil, this is gonna be super easy. If I just kind of like scribble in value and then try and blend it away, this is what I'm gonna end up with. Right, I'm still gonna be able to see all of those marks. So what I want you to get used to doing is using the side and blending up, or blending things slowly and in layers. So starting dark to light and then pushing things more dark to light and starting to push harder and layering that up over and over again so that you can avoid all of those scribble marks. Your blending stump, unfortunately, is not magic. It's not going to do that for you. So you have to use your skill with the pencil first, and then the blending stump kind of smooths things over afterwards. All right, so we have our value scale going from dark to light or light to dark. Next up will be our more advanced value scale. So good luck and enjoy the process.